Welcome to Lawo's VSM video training series on panel building. In this video, we'll look more into page navigation and how to assign pages in groups, and also talk about how useful the escape button is. So regarding button navigation, as we saw in the previous video, you can tell VSM what page the button should jump to by left-clicking on the little line underneath the button legend and then selecting the page number. And now, as you see, now that we've renamed these pages from page 1 through page 8 and changed them to actual names, the actual name shows up. Simply left-click on the page you want this button to navigate to when it's active. So for the targets, let's assign camera to the cameras page, frame syncs to the frame sync page, server to the server page, patch to the patch page, and whoops, we've assigned patch to the wrong page. No problem, just click it again and just assign it to the page we intended to. Multiviewer to the multiviewer page, and monitor to the monitor page. Now here's something to consider. Because you're not using the exact same sources and the exact same destinations at the same time, you don't have to have them on separate pages. For example, you don't have to have a separate page for cameras as sources and cameras as destinations. That's because our navigation is segregated into left and right sides of the pages. It is generally preferred practice to keep signals that can be used as sources and destinations on the same page for simplicity's sake. So now, let's populate page 2, our cameras page, with sources and destinations, again all on the same page. We can get to page 2 by clicking on the tab across the top on the editor window, or we can just double-click on the button itself. Let's go into the primary virtual matrix and select all of our camera sources. We first left-click on the first camera source, and then while holding the Shift key down, left-click on the last camera source. Now we've grabbed the entire collection of camera sources. We can drag all of these into the editor window, but there's a couple of different ways that we can place these, depending on what we want to achieve. Now notice when we hover over the first button with our left click of the mouse still depressed, we can see all the camera signal paths on our mouse. If we let go right now, VSM will populate left to right and then top to bottom in this group. So for example, if we have more than 21 signals, VSM will only drop the first 21 in this group. Let's see what happens when we let go on the second row. As you can see, VSM has placed these sources left to right, top to bottom. Now's a great chance to talk about the Move and Copy button. Up here in the button toolbar, you'll see a button in the middle called Move or Copy. Let's left-click on this button to change the tool for our mouse. Now we can use this tool to swap and copy buttons to rearrange them on the left side of the panel. You might like to do this if you have a preferred way to organize your buttons that is different than how VSM might have done it when you drop the buttons on the panel. Let's click on the camera button on VSM panel and see what happens. Now it's navigated to page 2, what we call the camera page. And you can see where we placed our buttons. So you may notice that the names for the cameras, camera 1 through camera 10, are within square braces. Why is that? That's because these camera sources are virtual source destinations, and nothing has been assigned to them yet. We often refer to that as a virtual source target. To show what we mean, let's go into the primary virtual matrix and do some physical assignments from CCUs to cameras. As we make the assignments, you'll see that the square brackets will go away one by one. To get a further view of the virtual signal, let's double-click on camera 1. You'll see that there's no inputs or outputs specified and that the virtual signal path bullet has been selected for the signal type designation. So now, back to the panel editor, here we have our 10 cameras assigned on the camera page. However, we have no way to navigate back to page 1 from here, but there is a solution for this. Down here in the VSM panel application, notice the escape button is still here. That's because when we navigated to the camera page, we only affected the buttons in group 1. Which means the Group 2 and Group 3 pages were not changed. Again, therefore, that's why we still have the Escape button. In VSM Studio, pressing the Escape button takes all groups back to page 1. So obviously, the Escape button is very important. So we probably should have that on all pages. We could manually add that to each page one by one, but that's very time consuming, and we do generally like to have the escape button in the same location for all panel pages. So it's simple. Let's go back to page 1, and then when we click on the escape button, you'll see the option Show on All Pages. When we select that, now automatically this escape button is on all panels in this exact same location. That was quick. At a glance, it's easy to see if a button has been set to show on all pages. It's because the button will be surrounded by a black border. As you can see here, there's a black border around the escape button. When we deselect Show on All Pages, the black border goes away. Then when we reset the Show on All Pages feature, the black border comes back. You can also see in the upper right-hand corner a little black triangle suggesting a new group. We'll get to that later. So as you can see, again, there's some additional features within VSM Studio that should make your job a little bit more efficient when you're designing these panels.